I thought I'd do a little video on food storage. There's a lot of people talking about the conditions of the world and new up-and-coming war in Iran, which is pretty imminent. And people really shouldn't freak out as far as doing things like food storage, but they really ought to do some food storage. And it really is less expensive than you may think. Most people, they live paycheck to paycheck. They go to the grocery store once a week and they really don't put anything ahead, like a savings account. We call it a food bank savings account for themselves, just for the peace of mind that they won't have to be eating newspaper in the event that something extreme happens and extreme inflation comes in and a person can no longer afford to feed themselves. If that happens, what will happen is a person's diet will suffer drastically, and they'll be eating things just like in Nazi Germany, where people had to come up with 1,000,000 marks in order to buy a loaf of bread. So I'm going to start here by showing you, for $50 you can put away 1 year worth of food. And right behind me in that chair is $50 worth of food that one person can consume 3 meals a day, every day, for 1 year. That's 100 pounds of rice sitting there. $9.99 per bag at the Save-A-Lot store. And it's a really cost-effective way of putting 1 year worth of food to the side, just to ensure that a person is going to eat. Certainly it's nothing fancy eating plain rice every day, 3 times a day for 1 year, but it's a lot better than chewing on newspaper. I'm going to put these to the side into the other food pile. Give me one moment, please. Now, once that you guarantee that you're going to eat for a year, you may start thinking, well, I want to eat a little bit better than just rice. And you should. If you want to maintain a healthy diet, you're going to have to eat more than just rice. I mean, if you look to my side here, there's all kinds of things that I put away. I added some instant noodles, sliced beets, cream corn, sweet peas, sliced carrots, dark red kidney beans, green beans, some canned luncheon meat, pork and beans, tomato sauce for pasta, diced tomatoes, which I might add is a very, very awesome thing to put on salads and sandwiches. They're actually a lot better than the fresh tomatoes that are found in the markets nowadays. They have much more of a tomato taste, and they last because they're already canned, and they're very cost effective. That can there, single can there, has a pound of tomatoes in it and costs $1, and sometimes even less. But anyhow, one word about food storage. Now, excuse me. Now, I have traditionally saved food back, and I always used to like to have an entire year's worth of food on hand. I used to maintain 3 freezers at my house when my oldest children, which were grown-up adults at this point in time when they were young, we had as much as 3 freezers full of food, just in the event of something that happened. I worked construction for most of my life. I tended to get laid off in the wintertime quite often, and we didn't want to have to, suffer. So we prepared in advance, just like people should be preparing in advance for the hyperinflation that is bound to happen. But let me show you something else. Pretty funky looking, huh? That's a potato. That's a funny looking potato. It was grown locally, and I like to grow my own potatoes. I didn't grow this particular box. This box was given to me, but that's what happens. People do share, and they do share nowadays, and hopefully people will have enough that they can share in the future. But that's the box of potatoes that I'm eating out of. I have another box over here. That probably doesn't look anything like potato storage you've ever seen before. That's something that I started doing a few years back. I'll show you what that is in a moment. But take a look inside the box. Those are potatoes that I grew in my own garden, and they've been sprouting. Now the key to saving potatoes, if you're going to continue replanting and regrowing so that you can eat past 1 year, into a second year or third year or more, potatoes is a great thing to have and to save back. One of the key things to do, and as you see I have it in a tall box, is to store the potatoes in the box and they will sprout. Sprouting is not a bad thing. Some people who do potatoes, they don't want the sprouts. But I'll tell you what, and I'll show you. See how much this potato has sprouted? On the sprout, there's a spot that's branching off, and there's several of them on each of those potatoes. Some of them I've gotten as many as 10, and as long as they're kept in the dark and they're not allowed to turn green, they will sprout off a root that's called a stolon, and the stolon is where a new potato will form. Now I'm going to do a little experiment this year and build in what's called a potato tower. I've seen other people build them, and I've heard how they spoke about them, but I think I've discovered a way that works pretty well in growing a potato tower. And the purpose of a potato tower is to grow potatoes in a tower-like setting, which is a tall planter, and to grow a large volume and weight of potatoes in a small area. I'm going to do that. I have some pretty neat ideas, but let me show you again how I store my potatoes. Look at that. There's a sprout, and as you see, it's an egg container. And as you see, they sit there nicely and they sprout. Now the next thing that I'm going to do with those sprouted potatoes is I'm going to make paper tubes. I'm going to use some paper. It's a packing paper. It's kind of like newsprint, but it doesn't have the ink on it. I would use newspaper if that's all I had available. I wouldn't be overly concerned about print on the paper, if meant the difference between eating and not eating. I would rather eat the potatoes that grew in the newspaper with the ink than just chew on the newspaper like some cultures over in Asia have had to do because their communities are starving. But when a person grows their own potatoes, I don't believe a lot of people do this, but what they should do is be saving the small potatoes like I did and put them in egg cartons, and they store quite well and they sprout. This is the end of February now, and I'm going to start making my paper tubes and putting my potatoes in them, putting them back inside a tall box so that they can sprout, and they'll sprout 2 feet in length and even longer. But the key is that they must remain in the dark this whole time, and then when they're planted, they'll grow potatoes. If they're left out in the light and they grow big long stems like that, they won't sprout the potatoes along the stem. That's just the way it was created. I hope I was able to pass along some good information and, put away some food. Start with $50, and then it costs $8, $10 for a case of vegetables, beans, whatever it may be. But you should start doing it if you want to guarantee that you're going to eat. It'll give you a peace of mind. $50 for a peace of mind, I think, is a smart investment. Thank you for your time.